Good afternoon, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernie or Bust Show. We're going to be talking about the alternative to voting for Elizabeth Warren if Bernie Sanders is again cheated out of the DNC nomination. So what we'll do is we'll begin with Dylan Ratigan. Jimmy Dore introduces him well. You can read about him here under my picture too if you want.
Is via Dylan Ratigan. Now, you know Dylan Ratigan was the guy who told the truth about the banks on MSNBC, and now he has to do his news reports from a dentist office. So here you go, Cliff, because I know you're still watching. Listen up.
The Democrats. The Democrats want you to believe that their party is, of course, wonderful and fabulous and wants to help save the world and all the rest of this. And they want you to believe that the only problem with the American political system is the Republicans, and more importantly, the corruption of the American political system and the Republicans by the Russians. This, of course, would be the most horrible thing that could come from the current political situation. Because if we allow the Democratic Party to convince anybody, ridiculous they've even convinced themselves, that the primary issue with the American political process is Donald Trump and the Republicans, that validates their capacity to sustain themselves in a disgusting and corrupt fashion. The reality is, the only reason we have Donald Trump as our president and these horrendous Republicans is because of the unadulterated failure and corruption in the Democratic Party. Think about how bad, how unappealing, how offensive Barack Obama and ultimately Hillary Clinton had to be to the American population in order for them to even remotely begin to choose someone like Donald Trump as a better alternative.
And that's what we're after. We can't see Elizabeth Warren as going against what Barack Obama has been trying to pass on. We won't see that from her, and I'll show you that as this episode goes on. We'll go back to the whistleblower, the CIA whistleblower, Tiffany FitzHenry. She has made the case earlier in this clip, which we've shown in two previous Bernie or Bust episodes. She keeps making the case here that the CIA is involved very directly with the messages that come out in U.S. films. She's talked about the Hulk. She's about to talk about Captain America and the messages that movies are allowed and the images that movies are allowed by the CIA to put in front of the American people. But it isn't just movies. We can also say that about Anderson Cooper. We can say that about other news anchors and other thought leaders who are represented by these same talent agencies. The CIA is connected to Hollywood very directly. And if you would like to see more about that, watch this whole clip. And that's why Elizabeth Warren, who also has received money from the same talent agencies that led to the flood of new political Democrats into the presidential race, all Hillary supporters from the past go-around, you can see what we're up against.
Of the State Department says we need Americans to all come on board with how bad Russia is, so we're going to make them the enemy in every corner, anywhere they look. Netflix, mainstream movies, this, that, and the other thing. And here's this guy who considers himself, educated, and those Fox News viewers are all watching propaganda, but then he watches MSNBC and he spews this propaganda. And you see how it's not different sources. It's like one continuing groupthink that's spread out through all of these different mediums.
And Hollywood is the sort of the beast behind all of it in a lot of ways, and that's why I work so hard to expose it, because it just, even like the Sony hack. If you look into the Sony hack and you actually look, you've got the Undersecretary of the State Department emailing with the CEO Michael Linton of Sony asking, what celebrities and writers and directors can I enlist to push out State Department narratives that are anti-Russian? I have that is on my Twitter just from yesterday. I post that all the time because it's such a great red pill. And it's Julia Louis-Dreyfus, it's Aaron Sorkin, it's Ben Affleck, it's Matt Damon, it's George Clooney, it's Kerry Washington. These names roll right off and you go, whoa, okay, what qualifies these, the backup what does that mean? Who and what are these people that the Undersecretary of the State Department and the CEO of Sony all know these are our puppets. These are our people who will push here, just like Ellen. I mean, this stuff is bombshell. And these are our... We have this perception in America that if someone's become a celebrity, they're like a trusted person. And it's like, oh, okay, well, George Clooney says that we need to crush South Sudan. Well, all right. Oh, because George Clooney what? It's George effing Clooney. You know what I mean? He, not for nothing, but like, what qualifies him? But then you find out, you dig down into his IMDb, you dig down into, I do a lot of cross-referencing. I have all these documents. I'm like a crazy person with my string and all that stuff. But all his movies, particularly the last 5 or 6, have been made in conjunction with the CIA. He's been cozying up to the CIA, the Council on Foreign Relations. He's been ascending into this place where now he's in the big leagues, where he's going to tell us foreign policy stuff, geopolitics stuff. And he's been groomed in a way, it's like, oh, it's just George Clooney. He's so charming and he looks great and it's Hux. He's won an Oscar. Oh, okay, well, let's go bomb South Sudan. Great. What?
Wow. So
It's just an example of many on here. She's talking about the Hulk and Captain America and how they control what images and what messages that we get to see. But it goes deeper. The rabbit hole goes deeper. And we're only halfway through. I keep showing you clips from this. I'm going to keep showing you clips from this until you get an idea of how pervasive this problem is. And I'm leading inexorably to Elizabeth Warren. She's connected at the hip with all of these powers, all of the money behind the string pullers behind the string pullers. It just goes on and on and on. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, we were wondering about her. Kyle was wondering about her, Kyle Kulinski. Let me show you what he says about her endorsement, her recent endorsement of Bernie.
Now, there's a lot of people who might not know the backstory when it comes to Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but they're all Justice Democrats. Justice Democrats is a group that I'm a co-founder of. The whole idea behind it was we're going to run candidates who take no corporate money, so they're principled, they're uncorrupted. But also, part of the idea behind the group was we want more Bernie Sanders-like politicians in Washington, D.C. So really, to people who follow this stuff closely, the question was more like, why didn't they endorse him yet? It's almost like, come on, let's get a move on here.
And that's how I felt. I couldn't see any good reason for them to wait other than that they're watching which way the wind blows and then deciding what to do. That's what Elizabeth Warren has always done. And so I started a petition on change.org to get the squad to jump in. And when you watch this clip of her speech in New York, you start to understand maybe she's tipping her hat just a little bit. You can kind of see that she may be saying that the pressure was mounting. Crystal Ball on the Hill was talking about how if you endorse Bernie Sanders, you won't be invited to certain things. And it certainly has happened to Tulsi. Tulsi has been trashed by this power cabal that I've been detailing for you over the weeks. And if you watch what she says, keeping that in mind, keeping that perspective of this powerful machinery that seems to be rooted in Hollywood, what she says here, I think, is revealing.
It's not just about standing up and saying these things, but behind closed doors, your arm is twisted. The vice pressure of political pressure gets put on you, and every trick in the book, psychological and otherwise, is used to get us to abandon the working class.
That's pretty clear. And these psychological tricks, she's not saying who's playing the tricks, but if you listen to Tiffany FitzHenry, she says they try to get nude pictures from you. They invite you to parties where there's illicit drug use and prostitutes. And I'm not implying that that's what they're trying to do to Alexandria and the squad, but I'm saying that the same people are behind it. The Clinton machinery is behind, and who knows what's behind the Clinton machinery. That's another question. But she is not naming names, but she's definitely saying that she herself has felt this pressure. And that's why I think she's waited so long to throw her hat in. She said she had an epiphany. She had a moment of clarity when Bernie had a heart attack. And I think what she realized was that she's already too cozy with the powerful people. And she just finally got to the point where she wasn't willing to continue to be that cozy.
And it has been in that experience over the last 9 months that I have grown to appreciate the enormous, consistent, and nonstop advocacy of Senator Bernie Sanders.
40 years, 50 years, he just keeps going. And he definitely has felt this pressure. And so he didn't take George Clooney's path, obviously, because we didn't hear about him for so long. Now we go to Elizabeth Warren. Some people are up in arms because the Bernie or Bust movement swung its support behind Jill Stein in the last go-around when it was clear that they were going to anoint Hillary. Elizabeth isn't going to do any better than Hillary would have done. And so I know that that's going to be offensive to a lot of diehard Democrats, and that's why a lot of diehard Democrats scream their heads off when Bernie or Bust is raised as a topic. There's even a Facebook group called Bernie or Bust that won't hear anything about the Green Party. And I don't understand what or bust means if you can't vote for someone that you actually want to vote for, unless they're advocating staying home, which is stupid. You need to vote. Everyone needs to use their vote to vote for someone that they believe represents their values. And if that's Jill Stein, that's Jill Stein. At least she's running for president. And they shouldn't vote for someone as a write-in candidate who isn't listed as a write-in candidate, because that is throwing away your vote, just the same as staying home. But you need to vote for somebody who you believe will support you, will support your values in the office of president and any other office, including dog catcher, including school board, including anyone you vote for. You need to vote for someone that you believe will represent your interests, not voting for some lesser of 2 or 3 or 12, and like this time, evils. So when we're talking about Elizabeth Warren, the question comes up, how does she really feel about Medicare for all? And we know that her daughter is hip deep in the health insurance industry. And we know that Elizabeth Warren, those of you who have followed the Bernie or Bust show, have seen all of the evidence that there isn't any way that she's going to support single-payer medical coverage for every American. It's not even going to be watered down. I don't trust her at all. And Harry Reid agrees, apparently. This is Harry Reid talking about Medicare for all and how Elizabeth Warren would probably back down. This is what he says about it.
Give her some time. I think that she's not in love with that. I think you will wait and see how that all turns out.
So you think she's more pragmatic than...
Oh, I know she's pragmatic. Just wait.
Pragmatic. She's pragmatic. I mean, she's pragmatic. You ever see white guys get so excited about a fucking word before? Oh, pragmatic? Oh, she's pragmatic? That's corporate speak for she's going to sell out? Oh, God, thank God. Holy shit, then she's good.
And this is the guy who couldn't even find the Ark without Indiana Jones's help, so I don't care what he has to say.
These, ladies and gentlemen, two American rich white guys comforting each other that nobody poorer than them will get anything that makes their lives any better. Don't worry, they're not going to get their health care. Fuck them. And I love what this guy says. He goes, and then they pretend to not have a purity test when we all know damn well that they're adhering to the purity test of their donors, who will only accept small tweaks to the ACA. So it's not us who have the purity test. It's these corporate pricks who will not do anything except what the donors say is okay. And the donors say no Medicare for all. And so that's why guys like Harry Reid and David Axelrod sit around and say shit like that. Oh, thank God she's pragmatic. So watch, he goes one step further.
Do you think the party itself, there's this lament that the party is drifting left.
David, you and I have been involved in Democratic politics for a long time.
Yes.
I think that what's going on now is no different than what's happened in years past. Primary, they're always pulled to the left. That's what the parties do to candidates.
In general election,
they move quickly. That's what history's all about.
This segment could have been called Two White Guys Hope for a Candidate as Boring and Conservative as They Are.
Not just boring, but as corrupt. So what they're talking about is the famous pivot. Hillary Clinton talks about her public position and her private position and openly talks about the pivot, how you pivot to the right again after the primaries are over. And Elizabeth Warren is pragmatic. She's already shown it. She has billion-dollar donors. She has said she will accept big money, dark money in the general election. She is beholden to health insurance. She is beholden to big oil. She just as much as anyone who doesn't wag their finger as violently as she does in their faces. But she's not going to hold them accountable. If you really want to change things, you can help me get out the word that we aren't going to vote for her no matter what happens. And then the traditional Democrats who actually vote, unlike typically young people and poorly educated people, we need to get them to realize that they can't possibly win in the general election, not only without us, but without the poor people and the poorly educated people and the young people. We have to put this in their faces. We're not going to accept Elizabeth Warren. We're just not going to. This has to get out in the next couple of months, or it's not going to. Here's more on Elizabeth.
I believe in unilateral disarmament. So does this only apply in the primaries, or will you carry this over to the general election or any other election you'll have going forward?
So this is for primaries. Look, I do not believe in unilateral disarmament. We need to win.
Okay, all right. Like last time. Remember how last time we won because we spent twice as much money as Donald Trump did? Oh, wait, we fucking lost last time. And we spent twice as much money as Donald Trump did. I guess that's not how it works. I guess we should try something else. Nope, same shit. Try the same shit.
This is the way she operates. She is such an amazing progressive Trojan horse because she talks the progressive game. Remember when she wagged her finger at the Wells Fargo guy and everyone went, yeah, the guy walked out with $124 million severance plan. I will wear a goddamn Speedo and a tutu and you can fucking kick my ass with a boot for $124 million goddamn dollars. She's going to resist Trump. We just saw her standing. She gave $80 billion to his war machine in October of 2017.
We saw her standing in a standing ovation when Donald Trump announced that we'll never be a socialist country, which we really know means we'll never be a progressive country. Elizabeth Warren stood and applauded while Bernie Sanders sat and looked grim.
She is such skilled at being a fake progressive, and she knows because of identity politics, no one's going to make fun of her age because they'll be called ageist and sexist, but you can do that about Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, wow, you were borderline sexist.
Good old Graham Elwood. And then here is the documentary that I mentioned yesterday, The Revolution Televised. I found it on YouTube finally. It's Right Brain Studios, WRITE. If you look there, you'll find it yourselves, and you should watch this because it is worth watching. I'm going to show you a little bit of it to end the show today. Jill Stein and notice Vote Green. This is where people really get upset about Bernie or bust because they advocated voting third party rather than voting for a corporatist Democrat.
Was she and the Green Party in love with Bernie and his ideas? Or had Julian Assange's revelations about Clinton's collusion with the DNC put them past the point of no return?
You know whose voice that was, right? That was Viggo Mortensen. He narrated this. Not a lot of people know about this very well-produced documentary, but this had some big names in it, and it has been actively suppressed on Twitter. Watch yesterday's show if you want to see the film producer talking about how they actively suppress on Twitter and Facebook.
And then we Everybody hear it for Bernie or bust! You are so amazing. You are transformation. You are a dream. You are hope. You are future. Right here and now. It's in our hands. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are many colors. We are many languages. We are many religions. We are what democracy looks like. On whose land, on whose labor, on whose blood, sweat, tears, creativity, vision, this country has been built. We honor the African American and indigenous communities for making what is truly great about America. America's exceptionalism is that we are a diverse nation. We are a nation from all corners of the world where we come together and affirm our common humanity. We stand together. We are one. Jill not hell. 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 Jill not hell.
She had never held elected office or gotten more than 1% in a poll. But in this year's crazy race between a socialist, a reality TV star, and a former First Lady, maybe even a Harvard doctor had a chance.
This goes on, and you should watch it. You should watch the Bernie or Bust people. Tim Black spoke in favor of, he spoke against Hillary. He said, we need to vote against Hillary. And so did Victor Tiffany, the godfather of Bernie or Bust. This is all happening in Philadelphia in 2016. We all need to get to Milwaukee in 2020, and we need to make sure that they don't sell our democracy to the highest bidder. We need to be there. We need to make it clear that we're not going to vote for Elizabeth Warren, no matter what. And we need to get that word out in the next couple months. Joe Biden is yesterday's news. They're not going to get him risen from the ashes. He's the past, and we're not going back. But the Trojan horse accusation against Elizabeth Warren is right on. And we need to get our act together. We need to not only wake up enough to know it, but we need to get the word out to everyone else, or our democracy is DOA. So keep on burning, keep on spreading the news, keep on sharing all these media sources that I'm referring to. Share this show too, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.